Welcome back to the discussion that we started a couple of weeks ago around platform evaluation for Phoenix Elementary School District. Thank you so much for carving out some time to extend that discussion today, and I wanted to thank the team at Mojave Middle School for joining us as well. Your input is going to be critically important as the district moves forward in this process. I am thrilled to have been invited to share a little bit more with you today. It's an incredibly important task at hand, and I admire all of the deliberation and thoughtfulness that you're putting into this process and really finding the right platform and the right systems and resources for your students and your teachers to impact learning in a very positive way. So I want to make sure we do a couple of things today. I want to talk about the digital ecosystem and how true interoperability and standards behind interoperability will come into play as digital programs continue to be developed and the integration of those programs into a unified system becomes more and more important for teacher efficiency and student learning. That's our first topic. Secondly, I want to address content and curriculum and talk about how a repository for open educational resources, teacher-created materials, premium paid-for content is and should be a key consideration as you're reviewing the platform landscape. It's critically important for teachers and students to have those materials at their fingertips and organized in such a way that learning can be differentiated for every student and the quality of the content can be vetted and evaluated before delivery to the students as well. So that is our second topic. And then lastly, we certainly don't want to miss discussing a little bit about how we assess student learning, how data is compiled and shared from the district level on down, aggregated information about student performance, about classroom performance, about standards performance, and how all of that really, really rich data and sophisticated assessment functionality should turn right back around and determine how content and how curriculum is chosen and delivered to students according to their strengths and weaknesses. So those are our three points today. We want to talk about interoperability in ecosystems, we want to talk about content and curriculum, and we want to talk about data and assessments, and how do we connect all of those through NGRADE and back out to our students and our teachers. So there's that word again. NGRADE is unifying education, and we are doing this through the lens of a true digital ecosystem that is purposeful, that is meaningful in terms of data, and that is following best practices and standards as identified by IMS Global Learning Consortium. IMS is truly guiding how McGraw-Hill is architecting our content and our platform functionality, and we are doing this in a way that allows for single sign-on capabilities, highly configurable outputs for learning pathways, and student data management. These are just part and parcel of what it means to be a digital ecosystem or to live in a digital ecosystem, and we are following in sync with the research being done by IMS. What I mean by unifying education and what this slide is really designed to showcase is that the stakeholders, the people behind the learning, the students, the parents, the teachers, the admins, all need to have access to high quality curriculum, easy to understand curriculum scope and sequence, real-time content available to them to be able to learn whenever they can, and all in such a way that it can be assessed, and data then will drive instruction the following day or lesson according to a student's individual performance. So we're really tying together all of the different roles and stakeholders, giving them permissioned access to high quality curriculum in one repository location, and the ability to then look at student learning in multiple different assessments through multiple different reports to drive instruction on a daily basis for those students. The philosophy through which we are looking at, or we all should be looking at really, how we decide upon the implementation of technology in the classroom is really according to research done by Stanford University, and that is, does technology improve student outcomes? The findings are that yes, it does, if and only if there's interactive learning, students are exploring and creating, and we have the right blend of teachers and technology. If these three things aren't happening, then technology may not be as impactful as we initially thought in a classroom. So I ask you to really look at these three considerations as you're reviewing different platforms and be critical about, is this truly interactive learning opportunity for students and not just, online materials or PDFs, truly interactive? Do we make sure that students are using those higher order critical thinking skills to explore and create rather than just to study and memorize? Do we have the right blend of teachers and technology? Do we have teachers who are passionate about and can leverage and harness the impact of technology to differentiate instruction and to improve student outcomes? Let's make sure that we're all looking at the platforms through the lens of this philosophy in order to ensure that we are improving student outcomes. NGRADE connects data to curriculum. This is really the heart of and the cornerstone of the platform. You can start in any one of these given boxes and have a continuum of one tool and function leads and creates the next tool and function. So the interactive assessments are truly interactive and can be digitally enhanced with technology-based questions to support student preparation for high-stakes assessments. Those assessments will then deliver recommendations or deliver data that can help us with recommendations for content and curriculum to then be assigned to students based on their specific learning mastery levels. And from that differentiated instruction, we can enter into a true standards-based grading system and really look at the specific standards and skills and students' mastery or partial mastery thereof, or go with a traditional grade book. There are either functions as far as grading is concerned within NGRADE, and so this just really represents the continuum of learning and the merging of content, curriculum, instruction, and assessments as opposed to treating them in silos like we have in the past. You teach, you teach, you teach, you teach, and then you assess. That is no longer the case. On any given day, the instruction and the assessments are happening fluidly and in classrooms, and NGRADE can support that. I know we don't have a lot of technology representatives in the group today, but what I wanted to point out here is, again, back to the IMS Global Learning Consortium and how we are watching those interoperability standards and designing our platform and our API architecture accordingly. This is really key in terms of integrating systems and making sure that all of your platforms speak to one another, that you're leveraging our single sign-on capacity so that you don't have to memorize multiple usernames and passwords and hit multiple different sites to get one piece of content or one lesson, that we have a couple of different ways in which we can roster students and import and export student data back and forth from the SIS to the LMS. There's a lot that we can say here, but I'll leave you with just this snapshot of our compliance with these critical standards when you're talking about platform selection, and I would welcome the conversation with your technology team to dive deeper into any of these different categories. And we should definitely do that as the process moves forward, because there's some really cool things that can happen to harness all of the different investments that you've made in multiple programs and create some great efficiencies for teachers in the classroom to maximize their instructional time with students. We can talk a little bit about Instruct and a little bit about Inform as we dive into the platform today, but basically it's a learning management and assessment tool. So you have content, repository, you've got scope and sequence, templates, planning, communication amongst students, back and forth with teachers and parents, and then in the section where the Venn diagram laps over, we see our standards-based grading, we see formative assessments, and then of course in the more formal informed section of NGRADE, we have capacity to deliver interim or district assessments, summative, formative reporting, and the like. So the two combined create a complete solution to learning and assessment management. And without further ado, I am going to jump in and show you a little bit of the workflow associated with those tools that I've just referenced. I'm logged in here as a teacher. You can see here that we breadcrumb everything so that you know where you are in the navigation and don't have to hit home every time to recreate the wheel. But essentially what I want to show you here is the course mapping system. The course map can be considered a scope and sequence as delivered or as dictated by the district down to the campus or the classroom, or if the determination is made that the classroom teachers can make those curriculum maps and deliver that scope and sequence. Either way, it's a wonderful tool available to you to really ensure that the standards are being addressed and then adding in additional activities according to student performance or differentiated need. So I will drill right into here. I can see that I've got 43 standards tagged within my 7th grade math class. Right here I've got 4 units that can be drilled down into to see different lessons and activities that are expected to address ratios and proportionality. You can see over here that 7 standards are addressed within this unit, and this is just a way in which you can navigate a student learning plan and see exactly what's being covered, or using these tools you can add to this unit or you can add to this folder just by clicking adding a link, going to an OER resource, add a lesson plan, add a file, what have you. How does this information then get delivered to the student? Well, if you go over here to lessons, it's a nice, easy to navigate pacing calendar essentially that's delivered to students based on that course map and that content that falls in those unit sequences. So this will give every student an idea about what's expected on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and down the line. You can see here we've got Khan Academy videos, we've got some Brain Pop, so that's pulling from that repository of content that I mentioned at the beginning. If we want to add activities to an entire class, let's say there's a current event or something that we think would be important to supplement the lesson that's already been outlined, we can do that very easily here by add an activity. We can do an entire group worth of adding an activity, or we can differentiate according to student profile. Maybe your IEP students need additional supplemental materials. Maybe you've got gifted and talented students who you'd like to give enrichment activities to. Whatever the case may be, you can choose from this pool of activities that is being pulled directly from the Learning Object Repository. And so here we have OERs, teacher-created content, your paid premium content, and so on. So that's one of the tools that I wanted to point out to you. Now I'm going to change the permissions, or not the permissions rather, but my user profile to be a district administrator here to show you a little bit of a different look and some of the data that you can expect to receive within NGRADE. So I'm going to go back into my middle school here and just get right into it. This is my math benchmark, and you can see here that I've got my student percentages in these 3 quarters. And if I want to take a look more specifically at any one given section, I just click in there and I can see very easily I've got these students who've got these scores. I need to address some of their learning patterns. Maybe I want to look at it standard by standard and do an analysis of where I'm seeing grouped together performances on any given standard. That's a quick snapshot to move to as well. If you hover over the nomenclature there, it gives you a description of that standard. You can hop over to this data wall and have yet another vantage point into student learning by doing a comparative analysis of a benchmark between current term and last term's assessment. And you can move this around then and see I've got students who are improving or who are falling behind, and I'm going to take this all the way back to my course map and drive instruction according to this data the very next day.